And I had the biggest smile on my face because after all the sacrifice I made swimming every day, that after a month I was able to do like 20, 30 laps nonstop. I mean, I really put the effort. And I sat down expecting him to congratulate me for all the effort I put. And he's telling me that all my numbers are worth.
Gus, how did you find carnivore?
Carnivore was my search for finally feeling normal. And out of desperation, after many years of uh, doing the keto diet, I felt that it can't be just it. There has to be something more. I need to know that I there's a day where I can wake up and just feel good, no, humanly good. So it was the second time in my life where, with literally tears in my eyes, I went to the computer trying to see if life will be this or it could actually get a little bit better. The first time was when I did the Atkins diet back in the 1990s. And it was a great diet to quickly lose weight, but all the lack of information that surrounded the diet, it was mainly just eat fat, and there were no explanations as of why someone should or why someone should not eat something else. And especially for someone like me that loved to eat bacon and sausages and all that was really, a no-brainer. So, but then I had to confront my doctor at one point, and he was telling me that, my cholesterol and all the story that we all know so well. And unfortunately, due to peer pressure, between my family, the doctor, and my total ignorance on this physiological or metabolic subject, I said, uh, I cannot just look for weight loss. So I went almost vegan. It was mainly low fat, legumes and vegetables. I remember there was a brand of margarine, a Smart Balance, that it was my replacement to butter. That, especially nowadays that we really know what it means to eat vegetable oils. But I had my doctor, my friends, my family all supporting me in my new vegan way of eating. And unfortunately, that took me, even though I lost some weight, it was mainly calorie control. And I was hungry, or even more than hungry, every minute of my life. It was really um, terrible to be suffering from hunger. I mean, people say, well, just don't eat. But one thing is to crave, and another thing is, if I don't eat, I feel weak. I don't feel good. So it's not the same finishing a gallon of ice cream because you're watching a good movie than needing to eat because you're just not feeling good. But that kept my doctor and my family very happy. So for a while, I was investigating how to replace meat with, fake meat, and, you know, uh, bread that was made out of rice with this margarine. And I said, okay, let's see in a year what my test results when I go to the doctor and I get my checkup, what they show, and well, we'll take it from there. When I started the Atkins diet, I was not a diabetic. I just did it because I needed it to lose weight. I did not have high blood pressure. After a year eating vegetables and vegetable oils, I gained weight. The photo that I sent you was at my peak uh, of obesity. At the almost the end of that 1 year eating, you know, low fat, I became a type 2 diabetic. My blood sugar spiked from 120, 110 to 140, 150. And my blood pressure was 170 over 120 most of the time. Gout, kidney stones, and you name it. So I was feeling so miserable. And the hunger was not just being hungry, but it was the accumulation of what I now would call a chain reaction of a constant inflammation process. So I go to the doctor a year after that diet, and my doctor, he was my doctor forever, so he knew me before the diet. He gave me the bad news that now I'm a diabetic. And those are not things that people like to hear, especially when back then, we're talking about probably a little bit over 10 years, 12 years ago. Uh, Googling something or searching for something on the internet was really like entering different twilight zones of information. Like, okay, who do I trust? What do I trust? So the moment I searched for diabetes, uh, you see images or comments about someone getting a foot amputated. I mean, I was far from that, but no one wants to know that you're aiming at the path of self destruction. And it was really very, very rough emotionally. It was not easy to take. But I said, I want to do something. And I remember the week before I went to the doctor, my sister's father in law died. And he was the typical sad diet individual that did not have any major health problem, but he had many small problems. And the accumulation of those small problems may, mainly ended his life. And then my diagnosis of diabetes just made the perfect storm for me to actually make a severe decision. So since I did not know any other diet other than Atkins, that it was going to kill me, and then this low fat diet that was killing me, I said, let me go halfway. I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the best out of both. And I said, I, I always worked out of my house, and I had a swimming pool. This was back in Miami. I'm in Argentina now. And I said, if I have time to watch TV, I'm going to take the time, go to the pool, and I'm going to try to swim as many laps as I can. And I'm going to do it every day. And I remember um, I didn't even make one lap. That's how bad, out of shape and overweight and you name it. It was it was depressing. I mean, I think that mm, I was more concerned about my pride than my uh, heart at that moment. That it was like I don't know. I don't recall having a heartbeat so fast ever like that day at the swimming pool. And I started eating like all my meals in a small plate, this plate that you would usually use for your salad. If food did not fit inside the plate, so I wouldn't eat it. And but it did. I mean, I thought it was working for you know uh, to improve my health. You know that I was going to not I don't know reverse because my doctor told me that diabetes is something that you have to deal with for the rest of your life. Let's just hope that we don't. make it worse, and we can keep you stable. So I said, I'm gonna make it so diabetes doesn't ruin the rest of my life, and I'm gonna do my best to improve it, or at least just to keep it, at the numbers I received uh, that doctor's appointment. 6 months down the line, the doctor, um, asked me to do some blood tests and the regular, routinary checkup for diabetic patients. And I had the biggest smile on my face because after all the sacrifice I made swimming every day, that after a month I was able to do like 20, 30 laps nonstop. I mean, I really put the effort. And I sat down expecting him to congratulate me for all the effort I put. And he's telling me that all my numbers are worse. And I'm like, do you know, Dave, those movies where the guy being interviewed, or the voice of whoever is talking to this character just fades out, and the guy imagines jumping, on top of the desk and just grabbing that person by the neck. That's how I felt because my doctor tells me, I'm sure you ate something you were not supposed to. It happens to all of us. And I remember the many times my family would eat cake and I had my rice cakes instead of cake. And I was like, this cannot be. So he gives me the bad news of, and that's when I learned what A1C is, that I had an A1C of 10.8. And I was like, the first question was, is that good? I mean, or how bad was it? What is 10.8? And he goes, no, no, that's really bad. We might need to start you with insulin. And I'm like, do we really need to? And he goes, yes. So I I was always the typical chubby guy with a big smile and a good joke. And that at that moment I felt like a clown. I kept my smile, but I was just devastated inside. I'm like, I thought, well, perhaps I'm one of those stories of, those people that don't really live that long. And, it's no matter what I'll do, it won't work. I mean, especially after the effort I put. I mean, everything was not good. My doctor was really doubting that I made the sacrifice I made, you know, those 6 months. So I sat down inside my car, and before driving, I didn't want to call anyone. I didn't want to tell anyone. He gave me the prescription to start immediately on Levemir, the long-lasting insulin. And he goes, let's start with, like 10 units, that it was relatively low. Okay. So I, he actually gave me the pens, two pens he had as a sample. So I don't even have to, spend the money to start with the insulin. And I got home. I was inside the car. I was crying. I was like, this can't be. You know, I was in my 30s, too young. So I got home and I did not even show my wife the 11 pens. I kept them in my drawer and I said, there has to be something else. And I remember when I came across the Atkins diet, there is a website that is still very popular. It's called Diatribe, and it's probably one of the largest websites, online forums of both doctors and diabetic patients in the world. And I remember many times reading LCHF. No, because I tried LCHF, low carb, high fat. And I'm like, I don't recall that term. I don't understand, I didn't understand what it meant. So that night, knowing that Levimir was there and he was waiting for me to start injecting myself, um, I googled the LCHF term. I looked for that specific website because I didn't want to, uh, look for any other links that would take me to strange, weird rabbit holes. And I looked for a few of the forums and conversations where people mentioned that term. And I clicked on it and I started reading what the person meant with LCHF. And it was completely the opposite to what the nutritionist, told me to eat after I was diagnosed with diabetes. That the first thing the doctor did was schedule me immediately with the nutritionist inside the clinic, at the clinic. I was put on, veggies, turkey, the leanest possible meats. And then am reading that people are basically, reversing, their numbers when it comes to blood glucose with exactly the opposite of what the doctor prescribes. I was so afraid of starting it that I texted the guy, the user. I told him, look, I just read what you're saying about LCHF. It doesn't make sense for me, especially after dealing with my doctor and the nutritionist. How can someone even attempt going 180 degrees the opposite way to medicine? And I'm like, you know, I asked the guy, are you sure it's working out for you? So this guy explained to me what he was doing. And yeah, I was like, well, either I believe what he's saying and I try, or tomorrow morning, my first round of Levemir. And I started with Levemir because I was very afraid to start LCHF, low carb, high fat. 3 months down the line, doctor wanted to see me to see if I'm using Levemir correctly. And the same situation. The test result was not good. I did not start it with the LCHF, with low carb, high fat. And he's telling me, you have to increase your units. And now, instead of doing it in the morning, Levemir, it's going to be in the morning and before you go to bed. So I I didn't even have the strength to cry. I was like, I'm sorry the term, I was frustrated and very upset. I got home. I went to the thread that this guy sent me as far as what his, breakfast, lunch, and dinner was. And it was not called Carnivore back then. But I said, I'm already losing the battle following my doctor's orders. And I'm eating food that I don't like. So mealtime is not a pleasurable moment. I don't feel good after meals. I don't have anything to lose. But I did not tell my wife or anyone that I was going to start this diet. I was going to do it in a way that, you know, whenever I thought, whenever someone asked me, how come you're not eating your legumes and your veggies, I would tell them. But I was very afraid that, I was going to be the responsible for my own suicide. But after a week or two, um, I started having more energy. I used to have my elbows so dry and my neck, the back of my neck, so dry that I would literally scratch the skin and I would have like pieces of skin and flesh and I would start bleeding. That's how bad it was. In a matter of 2 weeks, my skin was 10 times better. I was using a, a, a steroid, it's a, there's a term. It's like a steroid liquid, lotion for the dry skin. I was using a special shampoo that it was minimal the result I got from using them. And uh, again, it was adding more drugs to the inventory. And in 2 weeks, I stopped using them. I was I was afraid to actually drop my blood pressure medication. I was taking three. I was taking one was a beta blocker. There was another a calcium channel something, and there was a third one. Um, I did not want to actually stop them, especially without talking to the doctor first. Even though I knew that at some point I would need to look for a doctor that can listen to me, uh, because he was very much into the SAT diet and following, what the pharmaceuticals want you to follow. But I said, if I keep taking the medicine, all these blood pressure pills, I'm not going to have the strength to get out of bed. That's how bad it was because my blood pressure was stabilizing. So I started taking half of the dosage first, and this is in a matter of what, 3 months, 4 months. And then by the time I actually went to see the doctor again, one of the pills I was at a quarter of the pill because it was lowering my heart rate severely. And the units I think I reduced the number of units of Levemir to 10, and I went all the way up to like 80 twice a day, and I was doing just 10. And I went to see the doctor. It was the time where of the year that regular checkup, blood work, urine, etc. And the doctor told me, "I'm glad you're just following my advice. And the numbers are improving." And I'm like, "Should I tell him? Should I not?" So I told him. I said, "Look, I haven't been eating the way the nutritionist wanted because that was not taking me anywhere, and this is what I'm doing." And I was expecting a worse reaction, but I mean, it's been many, many years ago. Now I have a doctor that she's fully on board with my uh, diet. But my original doctor told me, well, I cannot tell you to continue eating the way you're eating officially because the clinic policy expects me to tell you to follow another diet and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So basically, I felt that I was not a patient of a doctor that wants the best for me, but I was just part of a bureaucratic chain of leadership that for some reason they just want me to buy pills and that's it. And that was a few months before I ended up moving to Argentina. I'm currently in Argentina right now. Um, the diet, the LCHF diet back then made me realize that I needed it to slow down. And the last factor for my for improving my health was not what I eat, but is the amount of stress that I was exposing myself to. And I made a decision to sacrifice income to gain quality of life. So in Argentina, I discovered with Dr. Canberry. Uh, and as I said, I was doing an LCHF. I was not doing carnivore. So I was a lot better with low carb, high fat than with keto. But the magic started with carnivore. After watching, finally discovering a doctor that supports the message I received from that diatribe website made me feel that, well, I was not chatting with the lunatic. I was chatting with someone that at least knew something more that I did not know. When all these doctors started appearing, uh, low carb down under, I probably watched every single video. Um, and it was not a video of a doctor trying to sell you a pill. It was videos of doctors teaching other doctors that there is a better way. Then I discovered the documentary, The Magic Pill, where one of the doctors sued in, I believe, Australia, was one of the doctors that participated in that documentary. Then I Googled the doctor, and that's how I discovered low carb down under, and I found that there is yeah, a constellation, a galaxy of LCHF stars in the medical field, and that I was not alone. And that helped me take the last step towards a fully carnivore diet. And 10, 15 days ago, I had my blood work done. Um, I no longer take pills for high blood pressure. Sometimes I probably take one, but it is mainly due to the stress that I inflict myself by exposing the line of work that I do and dealing with clients. Uh, but it is not something that I need, nor I had in those occasions the blood pressure where I had it back in the day. Um, from having a 10.8 A1C, mine now is 6.2, so I'm considered a pre-diabetic. I do not use insulin anymore. No insulin, no gout. I used to suffer from gout periodically. My doctor, I remember back in the States, told me, you got to stop eating red meat. And, I live in a country right now that, I mean, it is famous for, the beef we have, and it is very, very economic. So, you know, I eat good red meat every day, and no gout. I don't think it's magic, but um, I do I do see why a lot of people sometimes they give up. Such a drastic change in their life is it's mainly due to lack of knowledge and and information, and the lack of support by those that we want them to be there for us, like in the medical field. Um, so, I'm very thankful for your channel and for all these channels that expose real people like me to, you know, uh, what is metabolically correct.
So congratulations, Gus. That's awesome. Getting your A1C down like that, getting off the medications. That's great. How long has it actually been that you've been doing carnivore?
18 months,
18
strictly
months.
18 months.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you said you've got a supportive doctor now. Is the supportive doctor of carnivore?
No, but she is a local Argentine doctor that, when I went to see her to see if she would take me as her patient, because I was already rejected by two other doctors when I shared them, what I'm doing. They told me, one told me like straight, I don't want to be an accomplice to to your death. If you want to commit suicide, I don't want to be your doctor. She is, because she's a cardiologist, and she just fired me as a patient. She goes, I'm not going to uh, uh, be, your doctor. I'm not going to be your doctor if you're going to be eating that way. And then another doctor was very persistent that I should go back to using insulin. And I'm like, but if I did uh, so well, from 10.8 to 6.2 without it. Why would I need to actually use insulin? Well, because eventually I would like it to start eating fruit and I'm like, no, that doesn't make sense. And then I remember, uh, like by watching all these videos of the carnivore community, you know, comments like, you don't make a 1 year alcohol-free celebration and then you just give whiskey to everyone to celebrate. I mean, the entire purpose is to actually say, well, this is not good for me. Let's just cut it. But for some reason, doctors still believe that, a life full of veggies and fruit is the way to go. So when I told them, no, I'm not going to, um, I mean, I told him one of the things that I do eat that is not carnivore is during the season. Uh, 10 blocks away from my house, there's a stream, and there's wild blackberries, and I just grab a few. They have low sugar, but it only happens when they're in season. And I told him the only fruit I would eat is the one that I will grab, by the river, by the stream. And he goes, no, but you need potassium and the banana, I'm like, no. So I was without a doctor for a while until I found this lady that I cannot mention. I told her about this interview, and she goes, you cannot mention me there because she works at a clinic that, um, for example, she gave me a prescription for statins that she knows that I'm not going to use, but that is because the cholesterol level I have, that is like 260, requires the clinic to, write the prescription, and she cannot go against the clinic's policy. But she's been very helpful. I gave her a lot of information for other patients, like the ratios of cholesterol, HDL, triglycerides, and so she can see that it's not just the number by itself. You have to see the context, and she she's very happy with the results. I used to have fatty liver disease. I mean, I had a ultrasound. There's no trace of fatty liver anywhere. Uh, all my liver enzymes are in check. My kidney function is perfect.
So I guess from here, it's carnivore for life for you.
Yes, and I've tried many times in these 18 months. I would say probably 6 or 7 times to see how tough is my metabolism. Like let's see if I can deviate slightly. And it is so painful to cope with almost a week worth of, you name it, uh, from diarrhea, headaches, that I don't think a few minutes of pleasure, are worth it. And one of the funny things, my wife and I, we were like chocolate lovers. I mean, any type of chocolate was for me just incredible. It was the moment of the day where we would watch a movie and then grab the chocolate was the moment. And the last times I tried chocolate, it did not taste the same. My wife was like, "Aren't you gonna grab it?" When I started the carnivore diet, and she was, you don't want to grab a few chocolates? Oh, okay, okay. So I remember I grabbed one, dark, that it was the least uh, bad. And the moment I ate it, I was like, but this is not what I remember. This is not really what I was craving for. And I would crave more like sweetbreads. That it's, I mean, that's probably the part of the cow that what for a kid is a piece of cake. Well, sweetbreads for me is. that. It's the moment where, you know, carnivore makes sense. I crave a lot more things like sweetbreads, blood sausages, and things that are made uh, um, in a very homemade style. Because we don't have. I live in a very small town of 30,000 people. I know the butcher. The guy, actually prepares these sausage patties, where for the normal people, he would use sometimes some sort of like flour just to keep it all together. Well, I go once every 2 weeks. He makes a dozen of them without flour for me, and he makes them right there, so it's fresh. And having available, a relationship with the butcher also makes it a lot simpler uh, when it comes to shopping for this diet.
Nice. So how are you eating day to day?
That's a good question. I did for many months OMAD. I'm still dealing with cortisol issues in the morning. So whenever I do OMAD, it was, well, back then it was like around 2 p.m., I had like a late lunch. Um, but my blood sugar would actually go up from the moment I wake up until I eat. So to avoid that, I started eating a little bit earlier, sort of like a brunch. I eat two or three of these sausages that this butcher shop makes. Then I would eat ribeye. Then there's an Argentine cut that is very famous in countries where they have Argentine steakhouses. That it's called bife de chorizo. That it has a beautiful, piece of fat, that is very crispy when you grill it. Um Around 300, 400 grams. Uh, and sometimes I eat it with butter or ghee, uh, depending on how much fat it has. And then one of my newest best friends gastronomically, bone broth. Bone broth just, I mean, I used to crave. I'm still addicted to coffee. I mean, for me, the coffee smell can actually, I can like stop the car cold in the middle of the street if you pass by one of those breweries where the smell of coffee is just intense. So, but the only thing that can keep me away from coffee, so I don't drink that much coffee, I try to keep it at 1 cup a day, is bone broth. So bone broth became my newest best friend.
Nice.
Yeah.
And how is your wife about all this? You mentioned before, talking about the chocolates and stuff. Is she supportive? Is she also doing
She's
this?
she's very supportive. She's not doing it, but she actually reduced the amount of carbs because obviously, many of the things we used to eat together, she doesn't want to prepare like spaghettis or rice for just one person. So she's eating more of a keto type of diet. She eats a lot of salads. But when we have these gatherings with friends that we play like board games and stuff, um, they would bring sweets and she would eat them. I had many debates with people about when they ask me, well, how come you're not going to eat donuts or danishes and I'm like, I try to explain to them, and you know, it's hard. It's very hard to convince people that, first, I'm very lucky that I received bad news from my doctor, and I'm still alive. Not everyone can say that. There's a lot of people that are no longer with us that they did not have the chance to turn their life around. And People don't understand the severity of self inflicting damage to their body because they haven't received those bad news yet. And hopefully, I don't wish anyone, you know, diabetes or gout. But so a lot of people, especially, many men and women of faith, tell you, well, we're going to leave this world whenever the Lord, decides so. And I learned that if that is the case, why going to the doctor? If God decides that it is your time, just let it be. But people still go to the doctor, and I take it as what they mean by responding like that is a very romantic way of saying, well, right now I'm healthy, but they don't understand the importance of becoming your own best friend, so you stay healthy and exposing yourself to all those toxins and all those foods that are really poison will eventually get you to a doctor's appointment, and receiving the bad news. So they don't understand how we felt when we received the news that life will no longer be the same. That's why they keep eating the way they're eating. And that's why they don't understand why I don't eat what they eat. But you cannot blame anyone for, I mean, I was there once. I remember seeing people eating like the sugar free whatever and the fat free whatever, and you're like, oh, come on, life is too short. Well, I was also exposed to the moment where I had either life is too short, just abuse it and let it end as quickly as possible, or take care of it. So I chose to take care of it.
So, what would you recommend to someone who's just gone to the doctor? The doctor's just said your A1C is a million. Take all these drugs for the rest of your life. What's your message to them?
That is a great question. And I'm going to respond it fairly quickly first. Part one will be not related to the diet. And you'll understand why. We go to school, most societies have education as part of their culture, and we emphasize from a young age to take advantage of how kids can absorb knowledge, and we teach them a second language, computers, science, sport. Most of the people know how to take care of their computers or their phones better than how to take care of their own body or their car. I mean, I know people that can tell you just by listening to a very, very tiny noise which part of the car, where, and how, and it's just incredible. But they're clueless when it comes to the machinery that makes us live. So the first thing I would tell someone that receives the bad news of any type of disease or pathology is learn how you work, learn how the body works, and immediately you will be able to judge whether the doctor is good or not, because it's simple. I mean, all these carnivore channels like yours basically expose doctors that, knowing, because they studied it in medical school, how our metabolism works, they rather give you a pill that will probably destroy other mechanisms of your metabolism that just tell you just eat differently. So before you make any decision on what to eat, I would tell people learn who you are, but not the godlike creature that lives in our reason, in our mind. Learn who you are as far as the animal We are 99.9% animal with a 0.1% miracle called reasoning. But what keeps that type of miracle, nature's miracle alive is a 99.9% animal structure. So learn how that works and then make the right choices. So I would tell people, don't be afraid of eating what our ancestors ate for millions of years. But the only way to accomplish that is it's like you need to find out first if there's water in the pool before you jump in. So the knowledge of a little bit of knowledge of how is it that we work in the sense of how our machine works will make every decision after that a lot easier. And ask, especially now. I mean, there are tons of channels and people. There's a beautiful support group like Bill from Alaska. I watched him get the support from the community. I mean, I remember crying alone the first time I tried searching for answers, and I am very happy that that is no longer the case for the people that need solutions nowadays.
Nice. So Gus, is there any way that people can reach out to you? Do you have any social media or website or anything?
No, I don't. I don't have a social media or website, but my email for if there's someone from Argentina or someone that speaks Spanish, that sometimes it's very difficult, even though YouTube can translate, but sometimes it's very difficult to find specific information about the diet. They can email me at Cohen, Cohen, Gus at gmail.com. And it will be a pleasure to extend the family of carnivores.
Thank you very much. I'll leave your email in the show notes. Gus, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you. It was really my pleasure and honored. Dave, thank you so much.